It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve as I crossed the long entrance hall of my house on my way from the dining room where we had just enjoyed the first of many happy festive meals towards the drawing room and the fire around which my family was now assembled. I paused as I often do during the course of the evening, went to my front door, opened it, and stepped outside.
This is intended to be of interest, I take it.
Like, yes, of course.
Then why announce it as if it were the fat stock prices?
I'm afraid I don't understand.
Let us see this entrance hall. Let us see this house. Let us taste and smell this happy festive meal.
But that's impossible.
No, sir. Draw on your emotion and our imagination.
Forgive me, sir, I am not an actor.
No. Again, try it again.
It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve as I crossed the long entrance hall of my house on my way from the dining room where we had just enjoyed the first of many happy festive...
Pardon me. I know that what you read holds particular significance for you. That it is possible it will cause you some distress, but I must implore you, have sympathy for your audience.
Sir?
Well, just now we're alone in this theater. These rows of empty seats are unlikely to protest as you hum and mumble through your lines. But believe me, sir, speak them thus before an audience, and you will see them one by one expire with boredom.
It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve as I crossed the long entrance hall of my
Long
house.
entrance hall?
That's right,
Why long?
because it is.
Have sympathy for your audience. Are they interested in its length?
Forgive me, sir. Clearly I am wasting your time.
Now stay where you are.
No, this was a foolish adventure. I never should have come.
You did, however, and you have paid me for the day. I have no intention of not giving you your full value.
Please, I
No, attempt to leave, and I will leap upon you and compel you to recite the sonnets in their entirety.
I don't...
No! We'll make a Henry Irving of you yet.
I have no desire, sir, to be an Irving. My only wish that... I only wish to implore that my tale be told. That is all. Be told and laid to rest, God willing, so that I may sleep without nightmares.
Which is why you came to me.
Yes.
As one practiced in these things.
Yes.
As one who will impart to you the rudiments of public speaking. Who will offer advice as to expression and delivery. And above all, instill in you the confidence to stand up and make a go of it.
Confidence?
Yes, confidence. Now then, 9:30, Christmas Eve. Excitement, anticipation, crisp air, crackling fires, children asleep with stockings by their beds. A happy family, content, delighted, and above all, at peace.
It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve as I crossed the entrance hall of my house on my way. It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve. It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve.
What time was it?
9:30.
Not on Christmas Eve by any chance.
I am sorry, sir. Clearly this is not a success.
Now you see, it doesn't come in 5 minutes. You think to stand up and recite your tale and have your audience hang upon your every word, as if that's all it takes. In which case, why did you come to me, Phil? So that I'd say, yes, wonderful, without a flaw? Believe me, sir, performing is an art, acquired with tears and time. But I would be encouraged, sir, if every time I offered you some advice, you did not pack up your manuscript and make the stalk out of the theater.
Advice?
Yes, advice.
Sounds more like reproval.
I promise you, as the day goes on, it's likely to sound more so.
And may I say, sir, then it is not a performance that I wish to give. Now, I believe that we are at a misunderstanding in that regard. I only wish to speak it for my family only. I am not a performer, sir. I have no pretensions to be, nor any inclinations. But this tale, these horrible things that happened to me, sir, I have to let them be told for my health and reason.
You say you're not a performer?
Oh, truly.
In your hand is a manuscript which, on estimate, would take 5 hours to read. If you, as an acknowledged non-performer, should stand before an audience, however friendly, and drone at them for longer than it takes to play King Lear, I trust you will be unsurprised if by the end of it they are either fast asleep or at your throat.
5 hours?
At least.
Good heavens. I had no idea that 5 hours? But I couldn't possibly. But I have to. Now, I cannot carry this burden any longer, sir. It must be told.
It was 9:30 on Christmas Eve. As I opened my front door and stepped outside, I smelled at once, and with a lightning heart, there had been a change in the weather. All the previous week we had had a thin, chilling rain and a mist that lay low about the house and over the countryside. My spirits have, for many years, been excessively affected by the weather. But now the dampness and fogs had stolen away like thieves into the night, and the sky was prickled over with stars, and the full moon rimmed with a halo of frost. Upstairs, 3 children slept with stockings tied to their bedposts. There was something in the air that night, that my peace of mind was about to be disturbed, and memories awakened that I had thought forever dead. I had naturally no idea. No idea that I should ever again renew my acquaintance with mortal dread and terror of spirit, and would have at that moment seemed impossible. I took a last look at the frosty darkness, sighed contentedly, and went in to the happy company of my family. At the far end of the room stood the tree, candlelit and bedecked, and beneath it were the presents. There were vases of white chrysanthemums, and in the center of the room, a pyramid of gilded fruit and a bowl of oranges stuck all about with cloves. Their spicy scent was mingling with the wood smoke to be the very aroma of Christmas. I became aware that I had interrupted the others in lively conversation. "We're telling ghost stories, just the thing for Christmas Eve." And so they were, vying with each other to tell the horridest, most spine-chilling of tales. They told of dripping stone walls and uninhabited castles, of ivy-clad monastery ruins by moonlight, of locked inner rooms and secret dungeons, dank charnel houses and overgrown graveyards, of howlings, shriekings, groanings, and scuffling. This was sport, a high-spirited game among young people. There was nothing here to trouble or torment me, nothing of which I could possibly disapprove. I did not want to seem a killjoy, old, stodgy, unimaginative, so I turned my head away so that none of them should see my discomfiture. "Now it's your turn." "Oh no," I said. "Nothing from me. You must know at least one ghost story. Everybody knows at least one." "Ah, yes. Yes, indeed." All the time I'd been listening to their lurid, ghoulish inventions, the one thought that had been in my mind, the one thing that I could have said was, no, you've none of you any idea. It's not like this. Nothing so blood-curdling and decrepit and crude, not so laughable. The truth is quite other, and altogether more terrible. "I'm sorry to disappoint you," I said, "but I have no story to tell." And I went quickly from the room and from the house. My heart was pounding, my breathing short. I had always known in my heart that the experience would never leave me, that it was woven into my very fibers. Yes, I had a story, true story. A story of haunting and evil, fear and confusion, horror and tragedy. But it was not a story to be told around the fireside on Christmas Eve. And then I thought you might recite the piece from Hamlet.
Hamlet?
Some say that ever against that season comes.
Oh yes, of course. So for the purpose of the reading, you shall become me.
Quite so. And you, for the purpose of the performance, you draw on your remembrance to be the people that you met, those that played their parts in your story.
Sir, I am not a performer.
Sir, I know.
And this shall not be entertainment. I will not have these most terrible events be treated as an amusement or diversion. I insist, sir.
And I insist that you consider your audience, no matter how horrible. If your tale is to be heard, it must be offered in a form that is remotely palatable. You have come to me for advice and assistance. You must trust me. Now then, from here, if you please. And let us show that we mean business. Now then, your cue is fear and confusion, horror and tragedy, but it was not a story to be told around the fireside on Christmas Eve.
Page 3.
3. Right after 2. Well done.
Some say that ever against that season comes, wherein our Saviour's birth is celebrated. This bird of dawning singeth all night long. And then they say no spirit dares stir abroad. The nights are wholesome. Then no planet strikes, nor fairy takes, nor witch have power to charm. So hallowed and so gracious is that time.
Those lines came into my head as if from heaven. And a great peace came upon me. I recalled that the way to banish an old ghost that continues its hauntings is to exorcise. Well then, mine should be exorcised. I should tell my tale. I should set it down on paper in every care and in every detail. And then, that they might know and that I might be forever purged of it, relive it through the telling. I prayed a heartfelt and simple prayer for steadfastness and peace of mind to endure while I completed that most agonizing of tasks. The first part, the writing, I have done. Now comes the telling. I pray for God's protection on us all. Good morning.
Good morning.
I trust you slept well.
Yes, thank you.
No nightmares?
No, not too bad, no.
Ah, so we're not free of it yet.
I fear I never will be.
Oh, we'll have you playful as a lamb again. You mark my words. Now then, did you study as I asked you?
As best as I was able. You must forgive me. This is not my forte.
We'll make an Irving of you yet.
Would you stop going on about Irving?
Oh, no, but for the sake of our audience, let us at least try.
This audience that you speak of is to be my family and friends only. You don't intend to make a public spectacle.
Oh, no, good heavens, no. Your family, your friends, perhaps the odd theater man.
What?
Now then, the scene, London. Interior of the offices of solicitors Bentley, High, Sweetman, and Bentley. And I have a little surprise for you.
What's that?
Mr. Bunce!
Recorded sound.
Precisely. A remarkable invention, is it not?
Yes, extraordinarily true to life. I could swear I was on the streets of London attempting to negotiate the thundering traffic.
And so, Mr. Kipps, will our audience. No need to speak of cars and trams and horses, dirt and grime, no need, in fact, for words. Simply let the recorded sound be heard, and there they are, transported.
But the scene, it is to be in an office, is it not? Why would we have the sound of London traffic flowing to an office?
Why, indeed? Mr. Bunce!
Extraordinary.
The miracle of science, the hands of Bunce. He is particularly good at this sort of thing. Now then, to work. I am you, you are your clerk. I enter briskly, you are already at work.
Forgive me, sir, this is not my...
Your forte, quite. It won't become so unless you attempt it. Begin, just as we went through it all last night. Foul day, Tomes.
Yes, Mr. Kipps.
November, the dreariest month of the year. It's lowering to the spirits.
Yes, Mr. Kipps. And this fog don't help none.
The thickest of London pea supers. A yellow fog, a filthy, evil-smelling fog, a fog that choked and blinded, smeared and stained. I worked at the dull details of the conveyancing of property leases, forgetful for the moment of it beating against the window like a furred beast at my back.
Mr. Bentley wishes to see you, sir.
Straight away?
Straight away, if you would, sir.
That sniff, incidentally, occurred every 20 seconds, for which reason Tomes was confined, in general, to a cubbyhole in the outer lobby.
So what now?
Now you become Bentley.
Oh, yes, of course. How did I do? Will it pass?
Excellent, excellent. We'll make an Irving of you.
Stop! Go on!
Apologies, just carry on, carry on.
Sit you down, Arthur. Sit you down. I don't believe I've ever told you of Mrs. Drablow, Mrs. Alice Drablow of Eel Marsh House. Dead, don't you know?
Ah.
Yes, inherited Mrs. Drablow from my father. Been with the firm for a good age, 87.
And it's her will you have there.
Yes. Mrs. Drablow was as they would call a woman. Tell me, have you ever heard of Nine Lives Causeway?
No, never.
Nor ever of Eel Marsh of Shire?
No, sir.
Nor ever been in that county at all, I suppose.
I'm afraid not.
Yes, living there, anyone could become wrong.
I've only a hazy idea of where it is.
Yes. Well then, my boy, go home and pack your bags. Catch the afternoon train at King's Cross to Hummerby, and then on to Crithon Gifford, and then it's a wait for the tide.
The tide?
Yes, you can only cross over at low tide. And from there, it's Eel Marsh, and of course, the house.
Mrs. Drabblew's.
Yes, quite cut off you are when the tide is in. Extraordinarily placed. I've only been there once, long ago. My father took me. She didn't greatly care for visitors.
Was she a widow?
Yes, since quite early in her marriage.
Children?
Children. According to everything we know about Mrs. Drablow, no, there were no children.
Did she have a great deal of money or land?
She owned her house, of course, and there were some properties in Crithon, shops with the tenants, a small farm outside of town, and the usual small trusts and investments.
Then it all sounds pretty straightforward.
It does it not?
May I ask why I'm to go there?
Why, to represent this firm at our client's funeral.
Yes, of course. I'd be happy to go up to Mrs. Drabblow's funeral, naturally.
Yes. A bit more to it than that, though.
The will?
Yes, I'll let you read the details on your journey, but principally you are to, well, go through Mrs. Traveller's documents, her personal papers, if you will, and bring them back to this office.
I see.
Yes, Mrs. Traveller was somewhat disorganized, if I may say so. It may take you a while.
A day or two?
At least a day or two off,
Will there
huh?
be anyone there to help me?
There's a local chap on hand, handling things. He'll be in touch with you.
But presumably she had friends or even neighbors.
Ilmarsh is far from any neighbors.
And being Rumman, she never made friends, I suppose.
Oh. Come now, Arthur, look on the bright side. Treat this all as a jaunt, if you will. At least it'll take you away from all this for a day or two. And you'll be in Cridlin late this evening, and there's a small hotel for you to put up in tonight. The funeral is tomorrow at 11.
I had to inform my landlady that I would be away a couple of nights, and to scribble a note to my fiancée Stella, to whom I hope to be married the following year. After that, I was to catch the afternoon train to a remote corner of England of which, till a few moments ago, I had barely heard.
Are you dragging old papers, sir?
Thank you. I must say, Tomes, for all it's a strange part of the world I'm going to, it's a relief to be leaving behind this appalling fog and unhealthy atmosphere. And you still feel unsure whether or not to go through with this,
Certainly.
in spite of having just performed as you have done.
But there are just so many things that we cannot portray on this stage.
There's the dog, and the sea, and the causeway, and the pony and trap.
Imagination, Mr. Kipps. Ours and our audiences.
I would be obliged, sir, if you could explain to me, well, how our imagination can create a pony and trap upon this stage.
Here. Trap. Here, pony. What could be clearer?
It doesn't instantly say trap to me.
But you ride it, don't you? And with a whip, and with the recorded sound of a pony's hooves, I promise you nothing in the world could say it clearer.
Except a pony and trap.
Let us not be finicky, Mr. Kipps.
I must own, sir, that the recorded sound was splendid to me, a great surprise.
And there shall be more, much more. Tomorrow we're on the train with more surprises. Now then, you will study these. You see, I've divided up the lines again, and I've cut much of the descriptive passage.
But-
Recorded sound, Mr. Kipps! Recorded sound!
Well, nothing could raise his spirits more than this great sight of a cabin of a railway station, glowing like the interior of a blacksmith's forge. Outside his windows, it grows quickly dark, but with the carriage blinds down, almost as enclosed and cozy as a lamplit study.
This is Cruise Station. Passengers for Hummerby, please change here.
At Crewe, he changes with ease and continues on his journey. And noting that as he goes on, the railway line is now veering to the east as it continues on northward. And it is only when he comes to the small station of Hummerby that he begins to feel, well, less comfortable. For here the air is a great deal colder, and the wind is blowing in gusts from the east with an unpleasant rain upon its breath. And the train in which he is to travel in the last hour of his journey is ancient and comfortless.
poor night. Seems I've exchanged one kind of poor weather for another. I left London in the grip of an appalling fog, and up here it seems to be cold enough for snow.
It does not snow, but the wind will blow itself out by morning and take the rain with it.
Very glad to hear it.
But if you think you escape the fogs by coming up here, you're mistaken. We get bad threats in this part of the world.
Threats?
Aye, frets, sea mists, if you will. They blow in off of the sea and land on the marshes. One moment it's as clear as a June day, and the next, well, terrible. But if you're staying in Crithen, you won't see the worst of it.
I stay there tonight at the Gifford Arms. So I expect to go out and see something of the marshes a bit later.
Alice Dradler. Dradler. You don't tell me you're a relative.
I'm her solicitor.
Ah, bound for the funeral, then.
I am.
You're about the only one that is.
I gather she was something of a recluse. That is sometimes the way with old ladies. They grow eccentric, turn inwards. Suppose it comes from living alone.
I dare say that it does. Mr.
Kipps. Arthur Kipps.
Samuel Taylor. And living alone in a place such as that, well, it's easy to see how it grows a good deal easier.
Come. You're not going to start telling me strange tales of lonely houses.
No. No, I am not.
Well, all I can say is that it's a sad thing when someone lives for 87 years and can't count upon a few friendly faces to gather together at their funeral. How far are we to go?
12 miles. It's a far-flung part of the world we live in. We don't get many visitors.
Suppose it's because there's nothing much to see.
Depends upon what you mean by nothing. But you'll find everything hospitable enough in Crithen. For all that it is a plain little place, we tuck ourselves in with our backs to the wind and carry on with our business. Should you need anyone?
Oh, thank you. Well, I doubt I shall. Whatever help I need, I'm sure the local agent will provide, and I don't intend to be here more than a day or two. But thank you, just the same. The Gifford Arms was as comfortable a hotel as I ever could have wished to find. My spirits rose, and I began to feel more like a man on a holiday than one come to attend a funeral. Oh, my dear Stella.
Well, excuse me, sir. Are you a friend of Mr. Daly?
No?
I see. I don't mean to pry, but I saw you arrive in his car.
I met him on the train. He was kind enough to bring me from the station.
I see. Large landowner is Mr. Daly, buying up half the county.
In that case, I may be doing business with him myself before the year is out. I'm a solicitor, looking after the affairs of Mrs. Alice Drablow of Eel Marsh House. Perhaps you knew of her.
I know of her.
It's quite possible her estate will come up for sale in due course.
I doubt even Mr. Samuel Daly would go that far, sir.
I'm not sure I fully understand you. I gather there's a farm a few miles out of the town.
Hoggets? 50 acres, sir, and half of it under flood for the best part of the year. Now, Hoggets is nothing.
There's also Eel Marsh House, and all the land surrounding it. Might that be practicable for farming?
No, sir.
Then might not Mr. Daly simply wish to add a bit more to his empire? You imply he is that sort of man.
Well, maybe he is, sir, but let me tell you something. There's no one, not even Mr. Samuel Daly, to have anything to do with it. I'd like to wish you a good evening, sir. We can serve breakfast for you any time in the morning to your convenience.
There seems to be a propensity for leaving conversations to hang in the air whenever Mrs. Drabblow's name is mentioned. People close up, change the subject, or leave the room. Suppose it's inevitable. These small, out-of-the-way people have only themselves to look to for whatever drama and mystery they can extract out of life. I would think it not unfair to say that country people, particularly those who inhabit the remoter corners of our island, are rather more superstitious, more gullible, certainly more unsophisticated than those of us who encounter the metropolitan experience every day. Doubtless, in such a place as this, with its lonely houses, sudden fogs, and moaning winds, any poor old woman might be looked at askance. Once upon a time, after all, she would have been branded as a witch. Admit it, Mr. Kipps. Secretly, you are enjoying this.
While I do appreciate your help, sir, no, I am not enjoying this.
Mr. Kipps, every day you have come here and you have grown in confidence and stature.
Yes, but, well, this is merely practice, what you call rehearsal. I fear that when we have an audience, it'll be something altogether different.
Oh, we'll make an Irving of you yet. Now then, tomorrow I should like to work right through to the end.
In one?
We are able. How does that seem?
Oh, I have a horror of it, sir. Watching you, it is as if I'm reliving it all, moment by moment. But you will never suffer the way I did. I must remind myself of that.
I never think that I don't feel it. I have a child myself.
You do?
A son. He's 4.
And well, and happy.
I thank Providence.
Love him. Care for him. Yes, well then, to the end tomorrow then, and all things being well, sir, I hope that I have a surprise for you.
Excellent! You have a theatrical's instincts, Mr. Kipps, if not his enthusiasm. Till tomorrow, then! Morning.
Good morning. I thought perhaps this Kate.
You thought well enough. Yes. I hate mine. You insist.
Mr. Kipps?
Yes, indeed.
Mr. Jerome, your agent.
Ah, yes, of course. How do you do?
Good. I trust you spent a comfortable evening.
I can't remember when I've slept so well.
Wonderful. It's a sad occasion that brings you here.
Yes, of course. I never met Mrs. Drabdale.
No, of course. I don't mean to hurry you, Mr. Kipps, but if we step out well now, we'll be just about right for time.
Yes, of course. I must say, my first impressions of your little town are entirely favorable, Mr. Jerome.
It's a busy day for us, market day. They come from all over.
Of course, I would like to experience it in happier circumstances. Our funeral garb seems at odds with the prevailing mood of the place. Is it my imagination, or are we the subject of some scrutiny, Mr. Jerome? Those men there, did you see? They turned away when they caught my eye. And there.
It's a short walk to the graveyard, Mr. Kipps.
I feel like some pariah. Ah, well. I suppose we must look like a pair of gloomy ravens amongst all this. You and I, Mr. Jerome, are the specters at the feast. I take it she's to be buried in the churchyard.
That is so, yes.
Is there a family grave?
Not in this churchyard, no.
Somewhere else?
Yes, but it is no longer in use. It is no longer suitable.
I'm afraid I don't quite understand.
I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed. In a moment, the twinkling of an eye at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? But thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be yet steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. For as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. A man that is born of woman hath but a short time to live, and is full of misery. He cometh up, and is cut down like a flower. He fleeth as it were a shadow, and never continueth in one stay. In the midst of life, we are in death. Of whom may we seek for succor? But of thee, O Lord, who for our sins are justly displeased, for as much as it hath pleased Almighty God, of his great mercy, to take unto himself the soul of our dear sister, here departed. We therefore commit her body to the ground, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Very poignant ceremony. Tell me, that young woman, I hope she can find her own way home. She looks so dreadfully unwell. Who is she? The young woman with the wasted face. She was behind you in the church and then here in the graveyard, just a few yards from us.
The young woman?
Yes, one with the skin stretched over her bones. I can scarcely bear to look at her.
I did not see a young woman.
She was tall, she wore a bonnet type of hat, I suppose to try and conceal as much of her face as she could. Oh, surely you... Well, look, there she is now. Ought we not to... My dear man,
No.
Can you take my arm?
No.
I would be... Oh, Blythe, if you could loosen your grip just
No.
a little. If you could walk with me a few steps back to the church
No.
path, I
No.
thought maybe...
My dear, no! No, I apologize, sir. It was a passing faintness. I'm so sorry. Perhaps if you would walk back with me to my office on Penn Street, just off the square.
If you're sure...
I'm quite sure. Come.
You quite worried me just
I'm
now.
sorry. It was nothing. Nothing at all.
Very well. I gather you are to take me over to your Marsh house later.
No, I shall not go to that place. You can cross over any time after 1 o'clock. Keckwick will come for you. He has always been the go-between to that place. You have a key? Well, you will find Keckwick most obliging,
Good.
though not very communicative.
Oh, I'm getting quite used to that. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gibbs. I have to stop. You said you had a surprise for me, but I had no idea it would be that.
No?
That was the most remarkable coup de théâtre that I have ever experienced.
Oh, really?
I am devastated. Devastated! How on earth did you manage it?
Well, I studied hard, sir, and as you said, time and tears.
But from nowhere, Mr. Gibbs, it was miraculous. How on earth did you set about it? No, I understand. One must appreciate the magic, one must not ask how the magic works. But I do appreciate it. I assure you, sir, I do. It is quite remarkable and terrifying.
You are too kind, sir.
And you, sir, are a true theatrical. Shall we proceed?
If you wish.
And you're confident?
Well, sir, actually, I'm not.
We'll make it through yet.
Mr. Gibbs.
Yes? You're not Mr. Keckwick, by chance? Oh, that's delightful. I was expecting a car. This is a remarkable corner of the world, Mr. Keckwick. Sky, and only a strip of land. This must be how those great landscape painters saw Holland or the area around Norwich, don't you think? No clouds at all today. Oh, I can imagine how magnificent that great brooding area of sky would look with gray, scuttling rain and storm clouds settling over the estuary. It really is quite startlingly beautiful. The wide, bare openness of it, the sense of space, the vastness of the sky. I would have traveled 1,000 miles to see this. I've never imagined such a place. And that, I take it, is the Nine Lives Causeway. Ahead, the water gleamed like metal, lying only shallowly over the sands. A narrow track led directly forwards, and I could see how, when the tide came in, it would be completely submerged and untraceable. And then I looked up ahead and saw, as if rising out of the water itself, a tall, gaunt house of gray stone with a slate roof. It stood like some lighthouse or beacon or Martello Tower. The most astonishingly situated house I had ever seen or could ever conceivably have imagined. Isolated, uncompromising, but also, I thought, handsome. For a moment or two, I simply sat looking about me in amazement. I felt a strange sensation and excitement mingled with alarm, but I was not afraid. Of what could I be afraid in this rare and beautiful spot? The wind, the marsh birds crying, reeds in still water. How long will the causeway remain passable?
Till 5.
Listen, it would be quite ridiculous for you to be coming to and fro from me twice a day. I think the best thing will be for me to bring my bags and some food and drink and stay here a couple of nights. That way I should finish the business a great deal more efficiently and you will not be troubled. Come back with you this afternoon, and then tomorrow, perhaps as early as possible, we'll return, according to the tide. Or perhaps you would prefer to wait here for me now, though I will be a couple of hours. You know it suits you best.
And so imagine, if you would, this stage in an island, and this isle, a causeway running like a ribbon from the marshes through the sea, the only connection between the gaunt grey house and the land. Imagine Arthur Kipps there now, alone, tiny figure, lost in the immensity and wideness of the marsh and sky, dwarfed by the house amid the mysterious, shimmering beauty. He feels the key in his pocket, but he does not go inside. No, rather, he turns away from the house and walks towards the fragmentary ruins of an old church or chapel. To the west, on his right hand, the sun is beginning to slowly sink down in a great wintry golden red ball. And to the east, the sea and sky have slightly darkened to a uniform leaden gray. Imagine him now in the burial ground. Imagine 50 gravestones, most of them leaning, fallen, covered in lichen, moss, scoured pale by the salt wind and stained by years of driving rain. The names and the dates upon them barely deciphered.
In loving memory, something N.E.T. Humphrey, 18-something, and of her something you? Travlo.
Imagine him now grow conscious of the cold and the bleakness and the eeriness of the spot. He decides to leave, to go back to the house, to switch on a great many lights and to light a fire. Now see him turn. Beyond the wall, the grass gives way to sand and shallow water. The marshes and the salt flats, they stretch out until they merge with the rising tide.
I could see for miles. There was no sign at all of the woman in black, nor any place in which she could have concealed herself. I did not believe in ghosts.
By the time he reaches the house, he's in a lather of sweat from his exertions and the extremes of his emotions. For the longest time, he does not move from the dark, wood-paneled hall. He wants company. He has none. He wants lights. He needs reassurance. But what he needs more than anything else is an explanation. Because he does not believe in ghosts.
But out on the marshes just now, I saw a woman whose form was quite substantial. Yet, oh God, how do I even begin to describe the expression on her face? The desperate, yearning malevolence. God, it filled me with an indescribable fear and loathing. And she vanished in a way that no living, breathing human being could possibly manage to do. I did not believe in ghosts.
But what other explanation is there?
Hall, staircase, kitchen, scullery, drawing room, sitting room, dining room, study.
Nothing unpleasant. No shades of Miss Havisham, no piles of rubbish in the corners, no half-starved dogs or cats. A damp, musty, sweet, sour smell there is, but well, is that so unusual in a house situated as this one? It's furniture, good, solid, dark, old-fashioned, yes. Books and pictures and bureau. Yes, bureau and desks and writing tables and a bureau and papers. Papers in bundles, papers in boxes, notebooks, legal documents, letters and receipts, all of which he has to go through. A monumental task, but one in which there is no point in starting now, for it is far too late and he is too unnerved.
How one old woman could have endured day after day, night after night in this house, I could not conceive. I should have gone mad.
He decides to leave this place until morning. It'll be an hour before Keckwick comes for him, but if he steps out well now, he'll be back in Crithen in time to prevent him from turning out. The causeway, it's still visible, and the roads back are straight. How could he possibly lose himself? So imagine him now, striding out, small and insignificant in that vast landscape. As he walks, he summons up the image of that black-robed figure. He persuades himself that she didn't vanish as he thought. No, there must have been some dip or some shallow in which she concealed herself because he does not believe in ghosts. He puts her from his mind and he continues on, walking and noting the absolute indifference of the sea and sky to his presence. And then, out of his reverie, he becomes aware that he can no longer see for any more than a few yards in front of him, and that behind him, the Marsh house has become quite invisible.
Thick, damp sea mist. Damp, clingy, cobwebby, fine but impenetrable. The sea fret Mr. Daly spoke of.
He must retrace his steps back to the house and wait for Keckwick to come for him.
The mist was salty, light, pale, and moving in front of my eyes all the time. I felt confused and teased by it, as if it were made up of millions of live fingers that crept over me, hung onto me, and then shifted away again.
Step by step he goes, praying to reach the house. A nightmare walk until...
Keckwick!
Fearfulness, he goes about the house, switching on every light that he can make work, in the vain hope that their glow might be seen in this misty wasteland.
Every door was open, every room orderly, dusty, bitterly cold and damp, and yet somehow also stifling.
One door is locked.
At the far end of a passage that led away from 3 bedrooms on the 2nd floor. There was no keyhole and no bolt on the outside.
You have to wait for a fret like that to clear itself. There's no crossing over when the fret is up. Lucky for you, that was. And then there was the wait for the tide. An awkward place. But you'll be finding that out fast enough.
What time is it?
Nigh on 2.
I wouldn't have expected you to come back for me at this hour. That's awfully good of you.
I would not have left you here overnight. I would not have done that to you.
But what happened to you? How do you manage to be here? How did you get out? I fell into a sort of trance. Half sleeping, half waking, rocked by the motion of the cart. I knew that I had entered some hitherto unimagined realm of consciousness, and there was no going back. That the woman by the graves had been ghostly, I now not believed, no knew. For certainty lay deep within me. And I began to suspect that the pony entrapped with a child that had cried out so terribly and then been sucked into the quicksand, that they too had not been real, not there, not substantial, but ghostly also. What I heard as clearly as I now heard the rolling of the cart and the drummings of the pony's hooves. And what I had seen, that woman with the pale, wasted face by the grave of Mrs. Drablow, and again in that burial ground I had seen. I would have sworn that on oath. And yet, they had been, in some sense I did not understand, unreal, ghostly, things that were dead. Mr. Jerome.
Yes, won't you come in?
I trust you're fully recovered after your experience at Mrs. Drablow's funeral.
Thank you, yes, thank you.
No doubt you're wondering why I'm here. But you see, I had no idea, I don't know whether you had, of the volume of papers belonging to Mrs. Drablow. There's tons of the stuff. Most of it, I'm sure, is so much waste, but it will have to be gone through item by item nevertheless. It seems that, unless I'm able to take up residence in Crith and Gifford for the foreseeable future, I shall have to have some help.
Oh, I cannot help you, Mr. Gibbs. Oh, no.
I wasn't thinking that you would do anything personally, but perhaps you have a young assistant.
There is no one. I am quite alone. I'm sorry, I cannot help you.
Well, then help me to find someone. Surely the town will yield me a young man with a modicum of intelligence and keen to earn a few pounds. Who may I take on for the job?
I'm sorry. This is a small place. The young people, they leave. There are no openings.
But I am offering an opening, albeit temporary.
You will find no one suitable!
Mr. Jerome, what you mean is not that there is no one suitable, that no young person or older person for that matter could be found. You are backing away from speaking the truth of the matter, which is that I shall not find a soul willing to spend any time out at Eel Marsh House, for the fear of the stories of that place proving true, for fear of encountering what I have already encountered.
Keckwick came back for you?
Yes, I was more grateful than I could say.
Well, there is nothing that Keckwick does not know about Eel Marsh House.
So I take it he sometimes fetched and carried for Mrs. Drablow.
But she saw no one else, not
another living soul.
There are stories, tales. You can discount most of them.
Of course, but not all.
You saw that woman in the churchyard.
I saw her again in that old burial ground. Well, I will be put out by a ghost or several ghosts, Mr. Jerome. My work has to be done. I doubt if this woman in black can have any animosity towards me. I just wonder who she is. Was. I hardly know how to refer to her. I must face it out, Mr. Jerome. Such things one must face.
So I said. So I said. Once.
Mr. Gibbs, are you all right?
Yes. Yes, I'm fine. But Jerome, he was terrified.
But you, yourself, it would seem that you are in a state of emotion.
Yes, I was. It's my emotions were, they were so volatile and so extreme. As if I was living in another dimension. My heart beat faster, my step was quicker. Everything that I saw was brighter, the outlines more sharply and clearly defined.
Can you go on?
Yes,
Can you go on until the end?
yes, yes, I must. Yes, let us finish this, for God's sake.
Mr. Daly!
Ah, Mr. Kipps, and how are you today, sir?
Very well, I thank you.
Good. And your business here?
Mrs. Drabblow's estate. Yes, I'll soon have all that in order, though I confess there will be rather more to do than I anticipated.
So you've been out to the house?
Certainly.
Ah.
To tell you the truth, I'm enjoying myself. I'm finding the whole thing rather a challenge.
Mr. Kipps, you are whistling in the dark. You're a fool if you go on with it.
You mean to think that I should give up the job I've been sent here to do, to turn tail and run?
Listen to me, Arthur. I'm not going to fill up your head with a lot of women's tales. I'm sure you'll hear enough of those if you ask about the place, but perhaps you already have.
No, only hints. And Mr. Jerome turning a little pale.
But you've been out to the house.
I went there, and I had an experience I shouldn't care to have again, though I confess I can't explain it. It seems to me, Mr. Daly, that I've seen whatever ghost haunts Eelmarsh, a woman in black with a wasted face. Because I have no doubt at all that she was what people call a ghost, but she was not a real, living, breathing human being. She did me no harm. She neither spoke nor came near me. I did not like her look, and I liked the power she seemed to emanate from herself towards me even less. But I have convinced myself that it is a power that can do no more than make me feel afraid. If I go there again and I see her again, I am prepared.
And the pony and trap.
So you know of that. I won't run away.
You should not go there.
Afraid I'm going.
You should not go there alone.
Seems I can find no one to come with me.
No, and you will not.
For God's sakes, man, Mrs. Drablow lived alone there for what, 60-odd years to a ripe old age. She must have come to terms with whatever ghosts haunt the place.
Aye, maybe that's exactly what she did too.
Oh,
But you're set on it.
I am.
Then take a dog.
I haven't got a dog.
But I do.
There you are. Take her with you. Bring her back when you're done.
What's her name?
Oh, get down. Spider.
I'll be glad of her company, I confess. Thank you. Well then, come along, Spider. That's a good girl. There we go.
The next morning, he crosses over, riding a bicycle lent to him by his landlord. Little dog Spider bounding along happily behind him. The sun is up high in the sky, and the air seems purified and, well, more exhilarating.
There they lay, those glittering, beckoning silver marshes. I could hear the mysterious silence, and once again the haunting, strange beauty of it all aroused a response deep within me. I could not run away from that place. I had fallen under its spell, and it drew me. My imaginings, my longings, my curiosity, my whole spirit towards itself.
He lights fires. He airs out sheets and blankets, opens up windows and raises up the blinds, and sets himself up to work in one of the bays of the morning room.
Oh, down, girl, down. Well, Spider, have you ever seen a more worthless collection of papers? I do believe that Mrs. Drablow kept every bill, receipt, and Christmas card she ever got. There's even shopping lists, would you believe?
It's pretty tedious going, but he perseveres patiently enough, untying and cursorily examining bundle after bundle of worthless old paper before tossing them to the side. And so on into the evening he works,
Spider is a most excellent companion, and he is grateful for her being there, her gentle breathing, her occasional scratching and clattering about in the great old house. His main sensation is one of tedium, combined with a certain lethargy and a desire to be finished with the job and back home in London with his dearest Stella.
Well, Spider, another day or two and we'll be done. Come along. Time for bed. Come along, Spider. That's a good girl. Oh, Spider. Oh, would Mr. Daly let me take you back with me to London? I like Stella. Not so sure you'd like London. Oh, well. Good girl. Here we go. Good night. Good night. Spider, what is it, girl? What is it?
Gropes his way back to the bedroom and looks out. There the marshes, silver gray and empty. There the waters of the estuary, flat as a mirror, with nothing but the image of the full moon upturned upon it.
But there was nothing. No one. The slightest of breezes, but nothing more.
Next morning, he awakens to find a change in the weather. He looks out and he sees little difference between land and water, water and sky, for all are a uniform gray with low cloud and a drizzle.
I cycled back to Crithen, with Spider bounding behind me. There was a letter from Stella, full of exclamations of regret at my absence and pride in my responsibilities. I had the landlord's wife refill my hamper, purchased a good strong torch, and with the letter warming my inside pocket, I cycled back, whistling as I went.
And so he works on through the day, clearing paper after paper after paper. As a diversion, after supper, he decides to sit down and read some letters that he has found.
They were dated between a February of some 60 years ago and the summer of the following year. They were sent first from a manor house of a village some 20 miles from here, and then later from a lodge in Scotland. They were addressed to my dear, or dearest Alice, and signed, for the most part, J, though occasionally, Jeanette. The writer, a young woman and apparently a relative of Mrs. Drablow's, was unmarried and with child. At first, she was still living at home with her parents, though later, she was sent away.
In Scotland, a son is born to her, and she writes of him with desperate and clinging affection. Pressure is being put on her to give the child up for adoption, but she refuses, saying over and over that they will never, ever be parted.
He is mine. Why should I not have what is mine? He shall not go to strangers. I shall kill us both before I let him go.
And then the tone changes.
What else can I do? I am quite helpless. If you and Em are to have him, I shall mind it less. I suppose it must be.
And the last letter is written in a very small and cramped hand.
Love him. Take care of him as your own. But he is mine. Mine. He can never be yours. Oh, forgive me. I think my heart will break. Jade.
In the same packet, there's a small document declaring that Nathaniel Pearston, infant son of Jeanette Humphrey, shall become by adoption the child of Morgan Thomas Drablow of Eelmarsh House, Crichton Gifford, and of his wife, Alice.
What is it, Spider? What is it, girl? But there was no one there. There was no way out of the room except the door I had come through, and no one had passed me.
It is the child's nursery. In the corner, there's a small bed, made up and complete with pillows, sheets, and counterpane. On the table beside it, there's a small wooden horse, a nightlight. In the chest of drawers, there are clothes, underclothes, day clothes, play clothes, and formal clothes. Clothes for a small boy of age 6 or 7. Beautiful, well-made clothes of a style 60 years or more ago. And then there are the toys, most neatly and meticulously laid out and cared for. There are lead soldiers in their regiments, and a farm set out with barn and fences, a model ship complete with masts and sails of linen, whip, spinning top, ludo and homer, draughts and chess. There's a monkey made of leather, and a cat of wool, a furry bear, a bald dog with a china head and a sailor suit, pens and brushes, inks and dice, a miniature trumpet, and a painted musical box from Switzerland.
They must have been here half a century, yet they might have been played with this afternoon. There was nothing here to frighten or harm me. There was only a sense of something lost or missing. That I myself felt a desolation, a grief in my own heart. How can I explain it? I cannot. But I remember it as I felt it. The torch! The torch! Oh, God help me, the torch! girl? Where is it? Where is it? Where? Hi, hi. Spider! Stay with me, girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Just let it be morning. Let it be light. Let it be morning. Who is it, girl? Who is it? Who is it?
Before he can restrain her, she is off as though after a hare, running fast and low, out of the house and away across the marsh.
Spider, come back! Come back!
He stands amazed and bewildered as he watches the small dog recede into the vast landscape. And then he runs as he has never run before. Little dog now is floundering in the mud, fighting to retain a balance against the pole beneath her feet. She is yelping loudly, still just visible.
My courage, I'm coming!
Now he too begins to feel the stickiness and unsteadiness beneath his feet as the ground goes boggier.
Stay still, Spider, as
He
soon as
is
you
obliged
can!
to wade more than walk. Little dog now can scarcely hold up.
Have courage!
Her legs and half of her body have now disappeared.
Keep trying,
beneath the
Spider!
whirling, sucking
Keep
water.
trying!
Her little head is held up high as she
I'm almost
struggles
there.
and yelps mightily. He reaches out with one hand and grabs hold of her neck.
Don't you-
He holds and pulls
Don't
with a
you-
strength born of terror. He feels his grip on a slippery wet curb begin to give way as he slides under. And then with one last huge effort, he drags his body back into firmer ground.
Oh, Spider, it's okay. I've got you. It's okay. Thank God. No, Spider, stay with me. Don't leave me. No!
Mr. Gibbs! Arthur!
The trap! The body trap!
Yes, it's right over there. I still like to make use of one every now and again. It's a pleasant enough way to travel. Wait. What exactly did you mean?
I heard others. There was another.
Oh, yes. Not Keckwick, though.
No.
No. Take care now.
I'm better. I'm all right.
Had you on my mind. It unsettled me. I wasn't happy.
It isn't quite early in the morning. I'm confused.
It's early enough. I kept waking. As I said, I had you on my mind.
How strange.
Was it? Not to me. Not as it seems to me, no.
No.
It's a good job I came when I did.
Yes. Yes, I'm extremely glad to see you, Mr. Daly.
People have drowned on that marsh before now.
Yes. Yes, I know that now. I felt that I was being pulled under and the little dog with me. Spider! Spider!
Here now, here. She's here. She'll do. All right, then. When you've come to a bit, I think you better go and get what you need and we'll be off.
Off.
Yes. I came to see how you were faring in this God-forsaken place. I have seen. I think you better come home with me and collect yourself.
Thank you. I'll gather my things. I shan't be long. Oh, dear God in heaven.
Now, here! Up you get, Arthur. We'll have you home in no time. Come, Spider. Up, girl. For the glass.
Nathaniel Drablow, age 6 years. Cause of death, drowning. Rose Judd, nursemaid. Cause of death, drowning. Jeanette Eliza Humphrey, spinster, age 36. Cause of death, heart failure.
My friend, you've come a long way since I met you on that lake train.
Feels like 100 years ago.
You've been through some rough seas.
Do you suppose that poor Mrs. Drablow was haunted day and night by the vision of that woman in black?
Jeanette Humphrey, her sister.
Do you suppose that she had to endure those dreadful noises out there? If such was the case, I wonder how she could have endured it all without going out of her mind.
Perhaps she did not.
Perhaps. Was there something I still did not see? If I had stayed there any longer, would I have encountered yet more horrors?
That I cannot tell.
But you could tell me something. Come, we're a good deal away from that place now, and my nerves are quite steady. But I must know. It can't hurt me now.
Not you. No, not you. Maybe.
What are you holding back?
You, Arthur, you will be gone from this place tomorrow or the next day. If you're lucky, you will never hear, nor see, nor have anything more to do with that damn place ever again. Here, we must stay. We must live with it.
With what? With stories, with rumors, with the sighting of that woman in black from time to time? What?
With whatever will surely follow sometime or another. Crichton Gifford has lived with this for 50 years. It changes people. They don't speak of it, as you have found out. And those that have suffered the most, well, they say the least. Drone, Keckwick. Jeanette Humphrey gave up her child to her sister Alice and to Alice's husband because she had no choice. First she stayed away, hundreds of miles away. Then the pain of being parted from him, instead of easing, it grew worse. And so she returned to Crichton Gifford. She took rooms in the town. She had no money, so she took on sewing. She became a companion to a lady. And at first, apparently, Alice Drablow would not let her see the boy at all. But Jeanette, she was so distressed that she threatened violence. So eventually, the sister relented. But only so far. She could see the boy, occasionally, but never alone. And she could never, ever reveal that there was any kind of connection or relationship between the two of them. No one foresaw how the boy would turn out to look so much like her, or how the affinity between the two of them would grow out. And as that affection grew, well, so the boy became colder to Alice Drablow. Jeanette, she was planning on taking the boy away. That much I do know, but before she could do so, well, the accident happened just as you heard. And so the boy, the nursemaid, the pony and trap, and the driver, Keckwick.
Keckwick?
Keckwick's father. The boy's little dog as well. The bog is a treacherous place, as you have found out to your own cost. As mists, they'll rise up and cover the marshes. And then the quicksands are hidden.
So they all drowned?
Yes. Yes, and Jeanette Humphrey watched from an upstairs window. Yes, she was there that day, waiting for them to return. They recovered the bodies. All except for the pony and trap. It was held fast by the mud. And from that day forward, Jeanette Humphrey began to go mad.
Was there any wonder?
No. Mad from grief and anger and filled with a desire for revenge. She blamed Alice Drablow, you see. Alice let them go out that day, though really and truly it wasn't her fault. Those mists, they rise without warning.
Out of a clear sky.
And whether because of her madness or because of her grief, Jeanette Humphrey contracted a disease. One that wasted away her body. Her skin drew back from her bones, and her color drained away. She became like a living skeleton, a walking specter, if you will. Children, they were terrified of her. And so she died eventually. Died in grief and misery. Never as soon as she died, that is when the hauntings began.
Well, Mrs. Drablow is dead. There surely the whole matter will rest.
And whenever she is seen, in the marshes, the graveyard, or in the streets of the town, whomever by and however briefly, there's been one sure and certain result.
Yes?
In some violent or dreadful circumstance, a child has died.
What, you mean by accident?
Generally by accident, yes. Occasionally, one or two times by disease, taking the child in the day, at night, or even less.
You mean any child, the child of the town?
Any child. Jerome's child.
But surely, children do sometimes die.
They do.
Is there anything more than chance to connect these deaths with the sighting of that woman?
You may find it hard to believe. You may doubt it.
Well,
We know.
I do not doubt, Mr. Daly.
You may find it hard to believe. You may doubt
Well,
it. We know. Arthur.
I do not doubt, Mr. Daly.
Arthur. We know.
I do not doubt, Mr.
We
Daly.
know. Arthur.
Now it's your turn. I have no story to tell.
Foul day,
Nine lives called, eh?
Stop, scribble a note.
Dead,
One moment is as clear as the June day, the next.
Behold, I show you this
not see a young woman.
Stella. How did you get out?
I will not let you live with a lady.
Stella.
A woman? A woman
in black. Such things one must face.
Whistling in the dark.
should not go there.
A woman in black with a wasted face.
Alone should not go there. Alone.
But he is mine. I think my heart will break. He will never be yours.
Child.
Never. Never be yours.
There is only the last bit left to tell. A few weeks later, Stella and I were married. And just over a year later, Stella gave birth to our child, a son, whom we called Joseph Arthur Samuel. And Mr. Sam Daly was his godfather. I never thought of the past. I was filled with the joy and contentment in my life. I was in a particularly peaceful, happy frame of mind one Sunday afternoon the following summer. We'd gone to a large park, 10 miles or so outside London. There was a festive holiday air about the place. A lake, bandstand, stalls selling ices and fruits. Families strolled in the sunshine. Children tumbled on the grass. Stella and I walked along happily with little Joseph taking a few unsteady steps while holding on to our hand. One of the attractions on offer was a pony and trap on which rides could be taken. And little Joseph gestured to it excitedly. Now, because there was only room for two, Stella took Joseph and I stood watching them roll merrily down the ride. For a while, they went away out of sight around a bend. I began to look idly about me at the other enjoyers of the afternoon. And then, quite suddenly, I saw her. Our baby son had been thrown clear against another tree. He lay crumpled on the ground beneath it, dead. And 10 months later, Stella too died from her terrible injuries. I had seen the ghost of Jeanette Humphrey, but she had had her revenge. You asked for my story. I've told it. Enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's done, do you think? Will it now be laid to rest?
I pray that it will. I thank you for your trouble, sir, your enthusiasm and your efforts. Your emotions just now. It's as if I was watching myself.
I imagine my own child.
Yes. And I pray that when we show it to our audience, that it will indeed be done.
Who is she?
Beg your pardon.
Your surprise. She's remarkable. Wherever did you find her?
Afraid I don't understand, sir.
The surprise, Mr. Gibbs, the surprise you found for me?
Well, my surprise, sir, was that I learnt my lines.
Yes. You learnt them expertly, but the woman you found, the actress, the woman in black, who is she? You arranged it as a complete surprise, had her come here and go through her part, a young woman with a wasted face. She...
Young woman?
Is there anything the matter? You look unwell.
I did not see a young woman